All right, it's my pleasure now to welcome on Renee Buckingham. Renee, how are you today?
I'm good. Sun is shining, just did a 5K run, and Victoria has just announced some easing of restrictions. So
Oh,
happy
really?
days. Yeah. Do you not know? Do you want me to
I
fill you in?
have I have absolutely no idea.
Okay. Well, depending on when this goes out, as of tomorrow, our time, tomorrow night, we're allowed to be travel 10 kilometers. If you're fully vaccinated, you can hang out with people in the park. You're allowed out for 4 hours a day of exercise and socializing. And yeah, I think like skate parks and like playgrounds are fully back. So obviously you can get your skateboard out, go for a skate.
Yeah, absolutely sensational. I'll dust off my rollerblades, which I didn't sell.
I'm
Um,
honored to be your source of news.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's great news. I don't go to skate parks. I don't do 4 hours of exercise or travel
Oh,
10 kilometers. So
damn it. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm very excited for this.
Actually, though?
I am.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that the first thing I wanted to get into is usually I ask the person who comes on is, who are you? But I think it's important right now to ask how are you instead of who are you to start off with, because
Mm,
we are in a time which is obviously very difficult. I sort of made a joke about the restrictions easing, but for some people that sort of stuff is going to be massive and will be a massive help. So how are you going right now?
I think I'm fine. I'm really fortunate and privileged to still be working. I'm currently at the radio station and we're coming to work every day. So I think very fortunate to like break up from the day-to-day life. Yeah, I think like I completely surrendered to what's happening in the world and just really honed in on like the small things and like finding gratefulness in like the everyday thing. Just finished a 3-day juice cleanse. So I'm feeling like
You're
I'm
feeling
feeling
good.
great. I'm feeling cleansed, feeling refreshed, just eating some food, the sun shining. Yeah, I think like total perspective shift for me in the last 6 months is just really, yeah, like just fully surrendered, been journaling. So I'm doing pretty good.
That's good. How would you compare that to this time last year? Obviously, the situations are a little bit different, but there's a lot of similarities in the fact that we're in the same situation. You think
Mm,
you learned and adapted?
wholeheartedly, this last year has been the most transformative year of my life. Like this time last year, I couldn't even think about being alone. I wasn't working the job I was in. I didn't have a team. So much has changed. Like we were looking for a place to live. Like during a pandemic, it was a nightmare. Like yeah, this year has been a wild, wild year. But so grateful that I'm in a way better place than I was this time last year.
No, that's important. I'm 2 for 2 in moving place during lockdown.
Oh
And
my God, the worst.
I know it is actually like I'll quickly explain my experience. The place I've just moved into here. So I hadn't inspected it,
Yeah.
didn't really do much research on where it was located. I'm pretty much next to a train line where they're building one of those, like they're getting rid of the level crossing.
Oh
So
no.
so the movers come pick up all my stuff, and then I go into the street where my place is, where to drop it off, and the road's closed. It's closed because there are a million trucks, and it's like there's literally no way through. And my heart just sank. I was like, oh my God. I'm paying these guys by the hour and we have
Oh
to go back to my
no.
house. And I was like, this is just, I hate moving as it is. And
Oh my
like,
God, same.
honestly, I could have slid under a door in that moment. I was so flat, but thankfully I made it through. But I don't think I could do another move during a lockdown. It's the
Oh,
worst.
I did the same. Like we hadn't looked in like at the house because it was illegal to look in. And I moved, that was my 16th move in my life. So like I hate moving.
Yeah.
And I own a lot of shit as well. It's what you realize when you move. But I think if you think about it like this, Chris, and this is how I do, I'm like, it always makes good content or good storytelling. So
There's always good
you
stories
got
that
a
come out of
story
it.
out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's it. Look, we'll jump into, now that we've segued from that, we'll segue into who you are. You're someone who does absolutely a million things, which is complete opposite to me. It makes me almost uncomfortable, like, going through this to see exactly how much you do. So you mentioned you're at the radio station now, you're a radio show producer, you're an influencer, you're a podcast host, a content creator, someone who just does amazing things for vegan people all throughout the world. But obviously that doesn't define who you are. So who is Renee Buckingham?
Gosh, such a big question. I think like yeah, crazy. Like, first of all, I don't like want to ever bribe about like hustle culture, because I like can openly admit that like I work too much. Like, I'm too busy. Like, I don't have downtime often at all. And I think like I'm one extreme, trying to work on that and aware of that. But yeah, who am I? Like, I think I'm obviously like open and happy to admit that I'm a go-getter. Like, I'm definitely an entrepreneur, but like none of what I do is doing it for money or doing it for, to climb a corporate ladder or anything like that. Like, everything that I do, I'm really passionate about giving people better experiences. And that could be on a very minor scale in terms of, helping people find the best vegan cafe to eat, because I don't want you to waste tummy space on shit food and spend your money. Or it could be, producing breakfast radio where we're giving away $100,000 on air and making, a family that really need it stay. Yeah, I'm just really passionate about people, the planet, and giving people better experiences like during their lifetime.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask you, have you always been a people person? Because I mean, that's probably a silly question, but I think people are either born with that real entrepreneurial spirit or they're not. Like, some people just completely shirk at, the responsibility behind being sort of the way you are, and the fact that you probably have to pick yourself up every day even when you're not feeling like it to get shit done. Have you always been like that, or is that sort of like a real like scary step to take?
Great question. Like, I think, if you look at me today, obviously you would probably assume that I've always been that way. Like, I grew up doing musical theater and performance. I think I was forced to be pretty independent, pretty young, come from a single parent household, and, was cooking my own dinners, packing my own lunches at the age of like 8 or 9. So I think naturally I was kind of forced to grow up a lot younger in life. And maybe because of that, I found more independence, or maybe found my way a bit more. I think being a Leo, it's probably an our star sign to be a bit outgoing and adventurous, and seeking, I guess, adventure or more. But yeah, like I think I've always probably been this way. And like I think I have like a bit of a struggle journey to thank for that. I think I've really had no other choice but to do it and get it done. And yeah, like I think I definitely could have chosen a path where like I was a victim to struggle, or, poor me. But I don't know. Yeah. And like, funny you say that, because in the last week, like some of my days, like today will be, I got to radio at like 4:30 a.m. and I'll finish here at like 4:30 and then go home and do more work. Like, some days I'm just like, how am I going to get up and do that again? Like, I don't know how I'd keep doing this, but I don't know. Something's in me, and it thankfully just does it.
Yeah, no, I feel that. And I sort of feel that a lot with you, and the fact that a lot of the work that you do is sort of based around social media. And, it's not like sort of how I do my day. Like, I openly admit that I don't like social media. I have days where I don't really pick up my phone. I don't sort of, like if I have to, post a clip for the podcast or something, like I'll post it and I won't engage with it. Like that's just how I am. But like, for someone like you, obviously a large part of your job is based around interacting with people. Like, how much do you struggle with that sometimes on those days where you're like, I'm just not feeling it today?
So much. Like, I've had moments like right before I've gone to do Instagram stories on Melbourne Vegan Guide, where I've like literally had a breakdown or like been crying, and then like 30 seconds later I'm like, okay, I'm on. And like, maybe because I've had an acting background, like I might be good at switching that on and off. Like, in saying that, like I'm always transparent. Like, I'm not having a great day, guys, but like, I'm just going to be honest about this. But if you think about it, like producing radio, we have to be on. We're on for the talent. Like, that's our job, to essentially be on and pitch content and like be creative. And then I go home and it's like hosting a podcast. You got to be on. You're the one hosting it. And then I go to my vegan pages and I have a team of people that I manage and I'm on. And then I have all these other side businesses and social media that I run for companies and consult. And it's like everything I do is being on. So yeah, it's really hard. Like, I'm not going to deny that it's easy or that it's always enjoyable. It's tough.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I've probably learnt throughout the last, well, I mean, not that it didn't take me like 28 years of life to realize this, but a lot of, let's say your consultant will reach out to you and, you haven't got back to them in a while, and they're probably sitting there going like, what the fuck is she doing? I've really started to take note of the fact that I don't necessarily respond to people as soon as possible. So I don't have those what are they doing moments when, I'm waiting on someone. Like, do you find that like you had experiences with people like that, they're sort of getting to understand how you operate more?
Yeah, like I think in terms of like the influencer and content creating, like things move fast, and like brand collaborations and deals, like a lot of them happen after 5 p.m. when like someone's finished work and maybe their brand is their side hustle. So they're doing emails at like between 7 and 10 p.m. And like if you don't reply, it's a competitive industry. Like someone else might snatch that campaign or that ad. So yeah, like at the end that you do have the power to not reply and like then and there, or like if you don't, sometimes you miss out on those things. And I think that's one aspect. But then in radio, it's like things happen within seconds. Like,
Mm.
and I thrive on that and I love it. But I'm sure like inside, like internally, it's probably not great for our adrenal system either.
No, 100%. You've mentioned the vegan guides a little bit there. So let's get into that. So for those people who don't know about the immense service that you offer to vegan people throughout the world, please fill us in and explain how it all started.
Yeah, so it started back in, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago. I was living in Newcastle. I'd recently just gone vegan. No one in my family cared about it, didn't want to cater for me. I had no friends. So I literally was like, I'm going to use social media as a tool to like reach out to someone and find someone that I can hang out with. And I did, and she was vegan, and we put on a vegan picnic. She was running Newcastle Vegan Guide at the time. And then I was moving to Sydney for uni, and she was like, you should start Sydney Vegan Guide. And I was like, oh, I don't really know. She's like, no, just do it. Cause like you want to know where to eat vegan. And then, yeah, I just started it. And then all of a sudden, I guess, lots of other people wanted to know where to eat vegan in Sydney. And then, yeah, it just grew. Like I remember getting my first ever like free like dinner, and I was like, I've made it. Like this is the best. And now
You put
like
your
it's
feet up on the table at the restaurant.
yeah.
You're like, have a look at this.
Yeah, it was the coolest thing. I think I had like 3,000 followers, and I was like, I've made it. And then my partner at the time got a job here in Melbourne, and like I had to make that tough decision. Like, do I leave Sydney and like leave my business, or do I do something smart with it and like have someone work for me there and I start Melbourne? And so kind of did that. And now we've got Melbourne, New York, London, LA, and we're expanding. We've got a team of us now, which has been like transformative for the brand. But yeah, it's probably like I learned more by doing that than I probably did my whole uni degree. I was studying
Yeah.
media and journalism, and like I don't really feel like I have much to. I don't implement a lot of those skills that we probably learn in uni. I learned a lot more from doing my own business. So
No, 100%. I think a lot of people would echo those thoughts that you do. It's those real world kind of experiences which, really make you tick and make you sort of get through the new situations that you handle. Have you ever thought back to that moment where you were like, or do I potentially walk away from this as like, thank God I did not do that? Or was that not even something that you were seriously considering?
I think like you have to have a big like moment of reflection. Like I think people hang on, and I still do it, like people hang on to control and like the need to like oversee and do everything. But sometimes like you've got to understand that like people have way better skill sets. Like I'm not the best at what I do. There's other people out there that are better than me. And actually letting go meant expansion for us and for me. And yeah, like it was hard, but it also was at the time, it was like, okay, well, do I pursue love or do I pursue here? And thank God I pursued love, even though that's over now, it still taught
Love
me so
always
much.
wins.
And yeah, even though I had a bit of an internal battle there, but yeah, now because of that, I've expanded. And also like the dream for anyone is probably to like have a job, earn money, and work remotely and not have to be in that space. So Sydney was never like a long-term thing for me either, because sorry, Sydney.
No, that's okay. And once people come to Melbourne, they echo that. They never
Yeah.
go back. Would you say that you're someone who has a hard time maybe letting go something like that? Because I'm exactly the same. Like if I had to let go of certain aspects, it would take every ounce of my strength to actually let go of it.
I think I just had no other choice. I think you have no other choice. Like I just knew that like I had to come here and not like completely let go, but just like put trust. I think the most important thing was like trusting other people and putting trust in that someone can do your job perhaps better than you, and that not be a bad thing, because at the end of the day, it's like it still is your brand. And letting go and like putting trust in someone else meant huge expansion, and like so grateful that I did that.
Talk about the no moments. Like obviously when you do this kind of thing, businesses will say no, people will say no, and sometimes rejection comes more frequently than say what it would come for in my job in finance. How difficult are those moments, especially when you're trying to expand a brand?
Yeah, look, I spend a lot of my time pitching like what I'm worth, what we do, and you can't blame people. I think influencer marketing, content creating is a new kind of platform to market brands and products. So I understand there's an education and conversation around that. And to be honest, I've had a pretty good experience. Like I think I been a bit of a hustler or a go-getter. Like I know what we're worth, and so I'm never I'm prepared to like have some no's. And I think if everyone's saying yes to you or everyone's saying yes to your prices, then maybe they're too cheap or you're not charging enough. So I think it gets exhausting explaining yourself all the time to people. And like, but I'm probably used to it being a vegan. It's like, that's my whole life now. And like, I'm okay with my brand being the vegan girl or the influencer or the vegan, because like, yeah, you know what, like at the end of the day, that's what I'm doing. And there's no shame in that because I've had incredible success with it. So I think like, yeah, say no is actually a really positive thing.
Mhm. Do you like the term influencer?
I got a whole podcast around this.
Yes, you do.
I don't like, I understand the stigma around it, same as like I understand the stigma around vegans. I understand the stereotype around it. But I'm also like very fueled to empower people to just kind of own it, because at the end of the day, like every single person on this earth has an influence, like whether it be online or offline, whether it impacts 2 people or 2,000 people, like we're all influencing in some way or another. So I think everyone's an influencer. And yeah, like now I can kind of laugh my head at it as much like I can with the vegan thing. Just, yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah. Is it not hard to sort of get down about it? Because there is such a negative stigma around, say, the term influencer. Like a lot of people will maybe look at it as like a freeloader or just something that's obviously extremely negative, and they're making judgments on you as a person when they obviously don't know. Like I completely am not on their side, just FYI, because everyone has to eat, everyone has to make money. I don't care how people make their money, but there is such a negative connotation to that word, I feel.
Yeah, I think people don't like within the industry. I mean, people aren't loyal, people aren't truthful, people are just there for a buck or an ad. But you can always tell those people who those people are. Like every single post they do is an ad. It's like, mate, how can you love 70 different teas and skinny tablets? Like you can't like we don't love every single product. And so I'm
Yeah.
really cautious about like who we promote, audit their brands, like are they showing diversity and inclusivity within these brands, and those kinds of things as well. I think part of why I started the podcast is to challenge the people that are doing bad things for the image of influencing. Like people aren't being genuine, people are photocopying images of products into their shoots and like haven't even tried the product they're talking about. So I'm also on board with challenging influencers that are giving us a bad rap, but also empowering people to charge for what they're worth, so then everyone can charge for what they're worth.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a very, very well said. Um, let's get back to the vegan guide just real quickly, because there's one question I think is just super important. How challenging has it been to grow a brand like this during a time where for basically the last 2 years, leaving the house and dining has almost been non-existent?
Yeah, it was interesting when we went into lockdown 2020. I was like, okay, vegan guides, you kind of gone, like it's kind of done now. Like I honestly thought like that might be the end of it. But in fact, what we saw was something completely different. I think everyone was going to social media to find out where their local cafe was like open, whether they were closing, were they offering date night boxes. And because of that, everyone wanted to get their product out there. Everyone was shifting. Like I'm so impressed with the hospitality industry, how they shifted and adapted, and like all the cool and amazing products that have come out as a result of that. We've had the opportunity to market them and bring them to life in the home, which has been really great. I can create content in my pajamas now. I don't have to go get dressed up.
Perfect.
Or yeah, it's been awesome. And to be honest, in the last 6 months, we have been so busy, like more busy than we've ever been. And that's all been in the house. And like, I just like love and admire how much the hospitality industry has shifted and like jumped on board with that. And I think hopefully because of that, that means our business will shift and adapt in different ways. Like doing more than just food now is really important to me as well. Shifting away from just food products. So yeah, surprisingly, it was incredibly successful. I mean, all good to be charging small businesses money. Like I really did struggle with that. And it's like, you're a struggling small business. But then when you frame what I do as a brand, that I'm a small business as well, it's like, okay, I understand you have to pay your bills, but I also have to pay my bills. And if you want marketing, you wouldn't ever go to a radio station and say, hey, can you just do this for me for free? You would understand that there's a system in place. So sticking hard to that has really helped us like be able to stay afloat as well.
Yeah, that's super. I think I came to this thought like recently when I was at a cafe and there was like, it wasn't in the city because I used to work in the city before this lockdown happened. And so I would get coffee there and I was, waiting in line, like 25 people waiting for a coffee in this small, like little cafe. And I was like, I actually sat there and thought, I was like, maybe like my whole time I've been thinking, like small businesses here are just getting just roasted. And I was like, there's 25 people waiting out here at like 8 o'clock in the morning. Like maybe in a non-pandemic time, they have like 4 or 5. Like maybe their business is actually, because everyone's staying local and maybe it's gone. But I just never sort of challenged my mind to think that people could be doing well during this whole time.
Yeah, people have. Like people have opened businesses and thrived. Like you think about it, we're probably drinking more than we are. I'm going to the coffee shop twice a day just to have social interaction with my barista. Therefore, I'm buying more coffee. People are sending gifts more. Like people are, yeah, I think it's been really exciting for those businesses that have been able to grow as a result of a pandemic. And kudos to anyone that opened a business during this, because like look at platter businesses. Every white girl on Instagram has got a platter business now, and like they're probably doing really, really well because of the current climate.
Yeah. And meanwhile, I'm just sitting on my couch with a box of Savoys and like a block of chocolate with a steak knife, just cutting off pieces.
Oh my God, that reminds me of the chocolate game at kids' parties. Like we had a steak knife. I don't know what we're doing, but we're just like jabbing the chocolate. I think it was like who
Really?
could cut up a block of Cadbury quicker than anyone else. And I was like,
Is
give
that
the
a
vegan a steak knife.
was that a New South Wales thing? Because I don't think I've never heard of that game.
It was probably just like my mom thing. I don't know.
Just giving a bunch of kids knives and just getting
Yeah.
this, just stab
Stab the
this block of
chocolate.
chocolate.
Yeah.
That's
Oh
crazy.
God.
I mentioned misconceptions before, and I sort of wanted to expand on that. We sort of touched on how some of the, some of the views of people in your field are extremely critical. And you just mentioned, you have a podcast which sort of, tries to essentially break down that, talk about that whole experience in starting the podcast, which is called "Do You Even Influence?" And how has it been, sort of reaching out and getting people that you sort of probably already knew from some aspect to expand on their experiences with, the sort of same things that you go through.
Yeah, like I think my brother says to me, don't ever start a podcast unless it's something like you can't sleep about. Like, and I generally like, I was just offering free consulting for friends all the time. Like, okay, this is what I would charge, this is what I would do. And I think there's no textbook, like, book on how to be an influencer or content creator. So I think like, I was like, if I start this podcast and no one listens to it, cool. But if like I learn something or someone else learns something, that's awesome. And it's had an incredible response. I've talked to the community manager of TikTok and, all right, hey, who is a massive content creator, like people that are my genuine heroes I've had on the show. And like, I actually get really anxious hosting like a podcast. Like I'm always super anxious. Like before it, like I always have imposter syndrome. I'm always like, oh my God, like I'm going to speak properly. And even listening back, I'm like, oh, I cringe. Sometimes I can't listen to episodes. But I think for me, like it's just been a huge connection opportunity, especially in lockdown. Like people are more willing and people have time and actually genuinely want to have conversations. And I'm grateful that I'm mostly interviewing people with the power of platform, and people like to talk about themselves. Like in my industry, they do. Like I'll admit that I'm always down for a chat. So it's been really great. And we got sponsorship right off the bat, which was really exciting. My brother's a producer, which has been really fun to collaborate with him. And yeah, I'm excited to see where it, I guess, leads us. Like I've made some really great connections in the industry. And if I'm honest, Chris, I started it as a business opportunity. Like I see myself as a presenter one day. So I was like, how do I do something that's going to position myself as that in the future?
Okay. So I know we sort of touched on the fact that we haven't really dived into the fact that you work in radio. So you also mentioned you grew up doing theater and stuff like that. So is like
Mm.
morning television or TV of some kind, is that where you're sort of, is that where
Mm.
Renee sees herself in an ideal world?
Yeah, like I think so. I grew up, went to performing arts high school, doing drama and musical theatre my whole life, like really passionate about that. And in another life, I'd love to be like an actor. But I went to uni into journalism and media, and I thought I wanted to be a journalist. And then I did a work experience in a newsroom at the radio station up in Sydney, and I was like, God, I am not like I'm not sophisticated. I'm just way more conversational. Like I like swearing. I like laughing and
Perfect.
joking. Like it's just not like it wasn't me. And I think I'm also really passionate about storytelling, which is probably why I gravitate so much to Instagram or like radio, and like visual or audio is way more me than I guess written. um so yeah, like I think ideally I'd love to be a TV presenter, like travel, lifestyle, music, those kinds of things, or a radio host as well.
Mm.
Maybe I've got the face for radio.
Trust me, if there's one person in this podcast who has a face for radio, it's definitely not you. So I wouldn't be worrying about that. Do you think that you're more suited to, and we're going to sort of touch on some of the stuff that you do, which I think is really cool, but like, you know, the fact that you have the freedom to kind of do, you know, whatever you want with your own platforms and stuff like that, and speak about the things that you want to speak about and not kind of be shackled that sometimes say news presenters or TV hosts sometimes do, like they have a certain agenda to push and you can kind of just do whatever you want essentially.
Yeah, like I think when I first started my vegan pages, I never put my face in it. Like it was never about me. Like no one really knew who I was. Like people drop stuff off the door. I'm like, oh, you're the vegan girl? Like probably expecting me to have blue hair, covered in tats, hairy underarms. Like people were really shocked also that I was so young. Like people were like a bit taken back by it. So I think as I introduced my face to the platform, like I genuinely started to see more of like a connection with my audience. And now it's like I get recognized occasionally in the street, and like it's just a way more interactive and personal experience. And I've had a better result with campaigns and collaborations as a result of that. And yeah, like you said, I've been pretty open on my vegan guides about my sexuality, about probably like eating disorders and body image and a lot of those things that are really vulnerable to often do. And I never really know how people are going to react. Like I'm recently like promoted that I'm vaccinated, which is quite people aren't sure about that with vegans because technically the vaccine isn't vegan and all of this. So I'm always taking little risks here and there to, I guess, challenge the status quo or maybe educate people in a way that is scary, but also like being me is never like not being me is never an option in my life. Like I just, and yeah, maybe that's why hard journalism isn't me, because yeah, I'm not that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like um, I don't want to offend anyone who loves that sort of hard journalism type, but some people just absolutely love that kind of structure around, you know,
Mm.
say writing an article. They know
Mm.
what the template is, they know what they have to do, and that just makes people feel comfortable, I guess. Like for
Mm.
me, I'm not even close to a journalist. I don't like writing, but if I had to write like to a set structure every time, like it probably make me want to smash my head against the wall.
Mm. Yeah, and that's the other thing, you don't have the freedom to write what you're writing because full editors are seeing it before it goes live. And like I also just think print like media is a dying industry. So
It's a
yeah.
joke, and I will say that we don't have to quote you. I'll go out and say that print media is a joke. So that's probably the biggest takeaway
Mm.
from the last 18 months is it's a joke. But
Yeah.
one of these segments that I absolutely love that you do, which you've kind of got into what you sort of talk about on, is spill the beans. So
Mm.
you encourage people to talk about pretty much everything from sexuality to mental health. What is it like to have people flat out just openly admitting to you their most intimate sort of secrets and thoughts?
God, it's a massive privilege. Like I'm so grateful, and like I feel every Sunday when I do this segment on vegan guides, where essentially it's like a Sunday confession. I'm like, because I can see who writes it, so I know the people that write it. And like I've had people confess affairs, I've had people mention that they're gay and they're with a female partner and they don't know what to do, like some really intense stuff. And again, it's such a privilege to know this and hopefully be able to help people with this. It's also like, I'm aware that I'm not a qualified psychologist, so I'm never going to say give advice. I'm just going to say this is my experience, and also just put it out there, I guess, to normalize that we're all a bit fucked up. Like everyone's got
100%.
something. Everyone's got something going on. Everyone's got a story. Like everyone comes from, like, when I was a kid, I thought when you grow up, families are so normal, but everyone's family is messed up. Like everyone's struggling with something. And I think if I can play a small role in normalizing that, then that is like a job. Like I can sleep at night, that's my job, that's my purpose. And I want to encourage people to be like open. I want to encourage people to go to therapy. I want to encourage healing because everyone is so worthy of that. And so yeah, that segment I don't take lightly, and I actually have something quite exciting coming in the next couple of months that will be the next extension of that segment, which I can't share with you, but little
That's
teaser.
completely fine. That's completely fine. Do you sort of understand the impact that this has? I know you've said it's a privilege that people share, stuff like this, but when we're talking about sexuality and mental health, this is a massive, massive thing for people to talk about. And the fact that they are reaching out to you and feel comfortable enough. Do you understand the impact that that can have to someone to lift the burden?
Probably not. Like, there's a lot of conversations I have behind the scenes, and like, I'm not gonna lie, my Sundays are a work day. Like, I spend 9 hours probably on my phone, replying to people, interacting with people, like strangers. Really, it seems like a bit of a bizarre concept. And you don't often hear about how they go with that path. But someone reported back once they got out of a domestic relationship because they were inspired by the conversations we had, and like obviously I can measure the impact that might have there. But yeah, like, to be honest with you, I don't really see myself as like someone with authority. I just see myself as like, I genuinely do feel like I'm a bit of a motherly person in my nature. And this is probably like my sixth life. I'm probably like 70 years old. So like, if I can just like help people in that sense, like, yeah, I mean, the reality is, Chris, online, you don't know your impact. Like, you don't really see it unless people say it. So when people do, like, I really sit and try and process and feel so grateful for that.
No, 100%. And I think if you think about it right now, you can probably name 3 or 4 people who have made a very, very big impact on you for what probably to them seems like a little thing, but to you seems like a very large thing. That's
Mm,
essentially what you're doing, but you're on the other side of that.
mm. Yeah, I don't really sit in that enough, to be honest. Like, I don't, because I don't stop, I don't really sit and reflect. And like, I've seen myself on a bit of a rat race of recent where like things that I would have put on my vision board 6 years ago that I've achieved, I just like, okay, what's next? Like, I do need to get better at like maybe practicing reflection and like my own impact as well. So this is another reminder for that.
This is like a small therapy session of some sorts. We're
We
gonna
love
tick off.
therapy. I
Yeah.
love therapy.
Well, do you want to get into that now? I'm happy to admit that
Yeah.
I have been seeing a therapist. Obviously, everything that's going on, and I think the large part of my issues is I've moved back from overseas just before this whole pandemic started, and I still feel like half of me is here, half of me is there, and it's just
Mm,
it's hard to process everything that's sort of happened in such like a 2-year span, and it's at some point your head just gets
mm.
so full, and you just essentially just start screaming.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Like, I'm so passionate about therapy. Like, I see everyone has a box, and from childhood, we're all got this box inside of us, and shit happens, and we just put stuff in our box, and we just deal with that later, and we just keep putting it in, and then it piles up. And one day, people often let it get so big that it becomes like a jack in the box, and like people break down, they become addicts, and all these things happen to them. And it's like therapy to me is like going to a safe space where someone's just there to listen to you and you only, and take one thing out of that box one at a time. It's vulnerable, it's scary, it's uncomfortable, it's expensive, but you never walk away from a therapy session and be like, oh, I wish I never did that. You always feel better. And if I'm honest, like, my mom has severely bad depression, kicked me out of home when I was a teenager and went into mental hospital. My brother was an addict, went to rehab. My sister is an addict, just got out of rehab. um, I've been seeing a therapist for 6 years, love it. It's my whole life. And I think, yeah, like, intentionally for me, like seeing a therapist and working on that healing has actually been such a massive part of my success. And I think people wait so long until they're 40 and marriage breaks down to like deal with the shit that we've all built up over the years. But don't wait. Don't wait. Like, honestly, it's just like, yeah, I'm so, so grateful to hear that you're going to therapy. And if anyone's listening to this and you can take one thing away, you are worthy of healing and therapy too. And it's exciting. Like, it is. Growth is exciting, but
No,
also very vulnerable.
absolutely. And I don't know if you feel the same way to me, but a lot of the issues with me is that I wouldn't want to share with friends or family because, sometimes that those stories can involve people that they might know, and there's the fear of they pass judgment on to them or onto you. And so sometimes, as absolutely strange as it sounds, speaking to a complete stranger alleviates all of that anxiousness and the worry of, is this person going to judge me for what I say about my best friend, or my brother or my sister? And that just goes, and then you just don't shut up. Well, that's just my experience.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like they're there wholeheartedly for you, and they're not there to give advice. They're literally just there to listen and offer good strategies to put in place to like heal that. It's the best. Like, if I'm honest, like I first started re-seeing one when I met this girl about 6 years ago that I met her. I didn't really understand my sexuality at the time. I was like, shit, if I don't like see someone and work on like my insecurities, my identity, I'm not going to have this relationship. Like, it'll block me and like stop me from being with someone that I really probably deep down want to be with. And like, we had a great relationship, or mostly great, for like a couple of years. And like, I honestly believe if I didn't see a therapist, I would have just like put the wall up, blocked the fact that maybe I like girls as well, and missed out on that opportunity. So see, therapy.
Therapy
Therapy
works.
for all.
What was that experience like coming out? Like, I can only imagine that is one of the toughest things to do, to share that with friends and family. But ultimately, once you do, to see them support you would just be the biggest like weight lifted off your shoulders.
Like, super grateful that I went to a high school that was performing arts. Everyone called it puffs and tarts. Like, half the year was gay. We were all hooking up with other people. Like, I was hooking up with girls. I was like 14, 15. Never really thought much of it. And then I met this girl, completely by, like, I was meant to be wingmanning like for my lesbian friend. Like, didn't like girls. Like, I was like,
Whoops.
okay, I'll come with you. Yeah. And
And
ended
then you
up picking
snaked
up.
her.
She's like, yeah, she's like, how does a straight girl pick? I'm like, I don't know. So yeah, like I think I struggled a lot, like internally, like resisting it in early days, and like telling my brother and sister was very easy because they were very open to that kind of stuff anyway. I think telling my mom, like, again, like for me, not being who I wasn't an option, but like the conversations was so hard. Like, telling my mom I was procrastinating doing a uni assignment, and like her response was like, oh, it's just a phase. Like, it's first veganism, now lesbianism. Like, you'll get over it. And like, I was like, okay. Like, even when we broke up, she was like, oh, well, that was just a phase. So that was hard. Telling my dad I don't really have a relationship with him, I texted him after he met her and was like, oh, by the way, that's my girlfriend. And he was just like, okay. Like, he didn't have much to say. But telling my granddad was the worst. Like, he's like, if you can imagine full Aussie bogan granddad, that's him. Like, so much love. He's the best. He was like pretty much a dad to me growing up, but like very homophobic, very, very like right wing. And I told him the truthful reason why I went to Melbourne was because I was like pursuing a relationship with a girl, and he was just like, no, like, no, please, no. Like, he couldn't talk to me. He was like, I don't approve. That's disgusting. That's not love. I voted no, like, fully said that. Didn't come to my mom's 60th birthday because my girlfriend was going to be there. Like, literally, like, so homophobic. That was so hard and like very emotional and very like very vulnerable. Probably the most difficult conversation I've ever had in my life. But I had it. Like, not having it wasn't an option. It was really freeing to like put that out there. But even today, like someone asked me this morning, oh, did your ex do this? What did he do? And I was like, I didn't correct it. I just like still feel, I don't know, like I'm very public about it, maybe online, but day to day, like I'm not good with admitting that it was a girl or, yeah.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking to hear, essentially family kind of, I wouldn't call it their family duty to sort of, you know, support every decision, your son, your daughter, your granddaughter, your grandson make. But when it's something as big as this, to not support that, to me is just sort of, it is honestly heartbreaking. And I'm obviously not in that situation, but I can remember when I was living in Canada when the vote happened. And I'm definitely not a patriot. I'm not someone who, for a large part, would even be happy to admit that they are Australian. I've never been more embarrassed in my life when I saw the percentage of people that voted no. And that was, and I had a lot of Australian friends who were living in Canada, Canada's a very free thinking place. And the conversations that, we were sort of having with Australians and other Canadians it was like they were stunned. Like, how is it possible that this many people is against this? It honestly was staggering.
It was like, I was living in Sydney at the time, and just walking down, like, we didn't hold hands in public, we didn't touch, because it was such a wonderful time. And like, it's a yes vote, but it was a yes vote by a very close percent. So yeah, it's like, it was a shitty and like slimy and gross time to think that like almost half the people like walking past don't approve of like the love I have with this person. Like, yeah, very disappointed in Australia.
No, 100%. And I don't think I'll ever understand how someone, when it doesn't affect them, like it makes no difference to my relationship to see you walking down the street with your partner holding their hands or making out in public. I don't know if that's something you do, but all the power to you.
Yeah,
but
I love PDA.
That makes no impact on my life. It makes no impact
Yeah.
on, the people who voted no. So that was an extremely shitty thing from my perspective. I can only imagine how shitty it is from your perspective. Do you think often about how tough people sort of had it, say, a generation ago, because of how difficult it still is now? And sort of, I know it's obviously shifting. It will continue to shift in the right direction, but what people, went through in the 70s, 80s, 90s was staggering.
Oh yeah, like couldn't even fathom. And even in some countries now, like, in cultures and religions around the world, like it's still happening. Like I feel so grateful to be in Australia and be in a society that is somewhat progressive, but still think we have such a long way to go. But I do feel really grateful that I'm living in 2021, where it is actually safe majority of the time for me to walk down the road with my partner's hand. Not that I have a partner now, but if I did.
Okay, well, there you go. There's an exclusive for
Single, ready to mingle.
No,
Slide on in. Okay.
No, that's incredible for you to be so open about that topic, because as we sort of touched on before, it's something that a lot of people do struggle to talk about. And the fact that you are so open about it and to use your platform for that, I think is such a wonderful thing. And I have a lot of admiration for you for doing that. So kudos to you. And maybe a few people slide in after listening to this, who knows?
Always here for it.
All right. So in a place that's, obviously a little uncertain for now, at least moving forward, especially in Australia, what's next for you and for the vegan guides, for radio, for whatever your side hustles, for what's next for you?
Gosh. I'm actually like scared for the future, like scared but excited, because like I'm on this, I feel like everything's happening for me right now. Like I feel like I'm on top of this volcano and things are starting to fight. Like I've spent years like, and one thing I always like to say is that like none of this success has been handed to me. Like I've worked my ass off for it. Like it's been intentional. Like I've struggled. Like my family life is really fucking hard. I don't really have a family. Like, so everything that I've got, like I've worked really hard for, and I'm still working hard for each day. And I think yeah, like a lot of the struggle has fueled my successes, and I've managed to create really great connections in the last 6 months to a year that have opportunities just led to opportunities. So I think in the next year to 6 months, I'm only in a 12-month role at the radio in maternity position, so I'm not really sure where that leads. I'd love to be a full-time content creator. Potentially talks of opening a vegan restaurant here in Melbourne. travel, lots of travel. I want to travel so bad. I miss it so much. It's such a big part of my identity and like where I get a lot of my inspiration and creative energy from. And yeah, I think just continuing to pursue opportunities, and yeah, whatever comes my way, I am so up for. I think the vegan guides are really going to start to shift. You know, we're about to finalize our website and launch that, and hopefully see some further growth and products there as well. So bring it
That's
on.
bring it on. No, that's a great attitude to take. Now, I've got one last question for you. So you mentioned before that you're a Leo. As you can probably tell, I'm not someone who is very familiar with star signs and what they
Are you a
mean. So
Capricorn?
I'm a Scorpio. So
Oh, my ex is a Scorpio. How do I hang up this call?
I was gonna say what tell me what a Scorpio is, because I've had numerous experiences on dates where it's been asked to me like what star sign I am, and the immediate the energy leaves the room, I think, on both sides of the table when I say I'm a Scorpio. So what is wrong with Scorpios?
Look, I like to say that I'm an intuitive person. I love tarot cards. I love that kind of thing. I don't know everything about, there's a Scorpio, but then there's like your rising and your descending and all this other stuff. But in my experience, like Scorpios are very in their ways, and they have a tail and they can sting. It's like they're very lovely, but they can also be very strong in their opinions and their beliefs. And people say it's the sting effect. So I think like it's not a bad thing at all. Like Scorpios know who they are, and that's really important and like rare. And I can see that in you as well, Chris. Like
I'm
maybe
nice but
sometimes you,
stubborn.
yeah, like I can see that. Like it's not such a bad thing. Like Leos can be way too much and way too bossy and controlling. Like I can see that in myself. So Scorpios are safe. I think if people have been like stung by a Scorpio, then that's probably why you're getting that reaction, because they're like, oh my god, my ex was a Scorpio. Exactly what
Yeah,
I did. But
I
we
think
shouldn't project any of our past traumas or experiences onto you, Chris.
no, we absolutely shouldn't. They should experience new traumas with me, because that's the most exciting thing.
Stop.
Renee, thank you so much. That was an absolutely incredible chat. I loved learning a lot of new things about you and what you do. So thank you so much. You're an absolute
Chris,
superstar.
you are a legend, and like I love what you're doing as well. You're creating such a beautiful platform for people to just have like open, honest conversations, and like that is such important work. So thank you.
No, thank you very much. It was an honor having you on, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you do next.
Yes, bring it on, baby, and slide on in.